In this video, I'm going to go over what's new in IBM Copy Services 635 as well as 634. We didn't do a 634 video. There was a minor change that you might have seen gone out, but with 635 going out now, we decided to tell you what was in 634 as well. So in this video, I'll cover both. All right, so here you can see we got 7 things we're going to talk about in the video. 4 of which are based off of RFPs from customers, so direct requests from customers themselves. So without further ado, let's get going. All right, the first one is a REST API change. So in a previous release, you might have seen that we added a new REST API call for the DS8000 HMC. It's called Update HMC. It allows you to programmatically change the credentials for your storage system. Well, why would you need to do this? Well, we found that there's a lot of customers out there who, with a large configuration, several storage systems out there who, follow strict security guidelines and they change their passwords quite frequently. Well, CSM needs a connection to the box, and so whenever those passwords change or rotate, they have to go in and change it for every storage system in CSM as well. Well, that becomes quite tedious, if you can imagine. And so they wanted a way to be able to programmatically change it with the REST API call and make it much faster. So we did that with the HMC, and now in the 634, 635 releases, you can actually do that with any Spectrum Virtualize systems as well. So if you have a Spectrum Virtualize system out there, you're changing your password credentials, you can script to a API REST call and make that change. All right, the next one I want to talk about is audit log messages. We had a request, CSM I-106, for tracking when customers actually log into the CSM server. We didn't really have a message there before, so what we did was we added it so that when you log in, whether it be through the GUI, CLI, REST API, you would get in the console, you now get a AWNR 4005 message indicating that user such and such is logged in successfully. You see at the very top there, and you'll know which user actually did the login at what time. Gives you the timestamp, etc. We did that in 634. Well, we found out that for some customers that do a lot of automation, we kind of flooded the console. So they wanted the ability to turn that on and off. And thus, in 635 release, you can now specify a new server property under settings server properties. That is csm.server.audit.login equal false. If you set that to false, you will no longer receive those login audit messages. So we'll leave it up to the customer. The default is that it will show them, but you're able to turn it off via the server property. The property is not there, you'll have to add it directly. Just copy and paste it in. All right, the next one. So this was the big change that we actually made for 634. The whole reason why we dropped 634 back earlier this year. Although what happened is we dropped it right before the Spectrum Virtualize side actually dropped their side. So we decided not to do any announces or any kind of marketing with it. So I didn't do a blog. I didn't do one of these videos, and we held it back until now. What is this? Well, in 633, hopefully you remember that we did a change for Spectrum Virtualize storage systems for volume group snapshots. So what you could do is create a volume group with a set of volumes, and on the Spectrum Virtualize system, you can actually create what they call snapshots. This is similar to flash copy, but it allows you to take a lot of point-in-time copies of those volumes, many more snapshots or point-in-time copies than you could with the traditional flash copy, and it was safeguarded in the sense that you couldn't access the data. You have to go and clone it to another set of volumes and use it. However, it wasn't truly safeguarded in the fact that you could still delete those snapshots, and anybody, you willy-nilly could end up deleting those and not protected to the full extent that a safeguarded copy with the safeguarded copy solution that we have also was protected. And so Spectrum Virtualize added snapshots, safeguard snapshot support to their storage system, and our 6.3.4, 6.3.5 releases support that now as well. So what's the difference? It's the same snapshot session we had before. You want to do this, you create a CSM snapshot session. We are going to prompt you for the volume group on a controller, and then we import and keep in sync all the volumes in that volume group. So you manage, instead of adding copy sets like you do traditionally with CSM, you are adding volumes in the volume group on the storage system itself and managing it that way, because there may be other components using the volume group, so we don't make you manage it in both places. We'll just keep them in sync. But once you have that volume group, it'll be associated to the CSM session when you create the snapshot session, and you'll have two options now. You can either create a snapshot, that's what we did in 6.3.3. You can create a regular snapshot or as many snapshots, schedule a snapshot, etc. Or now with 6.3.4 and on, you can do create safeguarded snapshot. And this create safeguarded snapshot, that gives you that extra, it acts just like a regular snapshot, but it's more safeguarded. It's got more protections on it. Can't be deleted directly. Has a set expiration, etc. Now, one of the benefits with CSM is we make it very easy for you to do both, right? So say you have a snapshot session that a volume group where you say you want to take snapshots, maybe every once an hour, let's say. Say you want to take snapshots once an hour on this thing. However, you don't really need to safeguard all those snapshots. It can be tedious. You might want to delete some, blah, blah, blah. And your overall requirement is only to safeguard once a day. Well, you can create two schedules against the same session where one is scheduled to do hourly backup or snapshots, and the other one is scheduled to do a daily safeguard snapshot, so that the hourly ones can be deleted, but the daily ones are truly safeguarded. So we allow you to do both. We show you both. So in that screenshot there, you can see that safeguarded column. It'll show you yes or no, show you the expiration, etc. So it's quite powerful. You can manage it all under one CSM session and handle it that way. All right, the next change I want to talk about is two infrastructure changes. So I should note here that from an end user perspective, you shouldn't see any differences really from these changes. But we did want to be transparent and let you know that the changes were made and hopefully will improve the product going forward. So first change is we moved from Java 8 to Java 11. So Java 8 is soon won't be supported anymore. So we're getting a jump on that, finally moving to Java 11 so we can pick up the latest Java enhancements plus any security fixes, etc. that have gone with Java. Now, again, this is just infrastructure kind of related. You don't have to install Java. That's all part of CSM and install package. But Java 11 is what's running underneath the CSM server as of 6.3.5. The next one is in terms of our SSH handling. So CSM will make SSH calls out of the CSM server in two different cases. One is to communicate to any Spectrum Virtualize storage systems. That's how the API works, how we make calls, etc. And the other is with that new scheduled task support where you can invoke external commands as part of the scheduled task. So both those cases do use SSH. Now, in the past, a reason why we changed is our SSH code was all developed internally to IBM. It's a IBM internal kind of SSH, but it wasn't kept up to date as is in our product, and so we had to keep that up to date in terms of security and stuff. And in order to ensure that we're developing towards our customers and their requests, and from the end product perspective, we decided to move that from that internal SSH code to Apache Mina. So we now embed Apache Mina into CSM to use as our SSH solution, so that we can allow that Apache Mina to provide all the security updates, et cetera, as we go forward and take advantage of all that Apache Mina, because it focused on SSH, has to offer. So again, I want to emphasize you shouldn't see any external customers, any changes externally as a customer, but these infrastructure changes are there. All right, the next one is related to a recent change we made where we associated, we allowed the customers to associate email addresses to actual users. So the reason why we did that was a couple things, but one of the main ones was to allow them to define notifications using users instead of just a long email list. Before it used to be you could send in a comma separate email list. You still can, but it wasn't associated to any of the actual users, or at least you didn't know what that association was. So now you can set up users and either define an email address, or we'll pull an email address from LDAP if you use LDAP, and use that when you're actually creating a email notification. Well, we delivered that in a previous release, but a request came in because in particularly in multi-tenancy environments, for session state change level events, there was no way to guarantee or make sure that only certain users saw certain events. It's kind of give me all session state change events is what it was before. So what we did was one, ensure that if a user can't see a session, their monitor or an operator, I should say, that doesn't have access to one set of sessions, they will never get events from those sessions. But two, an admin can actually come in here, choose session state change for a user, and then select one or more sessions that they will actually see events for. Alternatively, they could also click the button at the bottom that says receive alerts for all managed sessions. That's all sessions that they themselves can manage. And that's going to allow them to, you don't have to, if a new session comes in, you don't have to update it. That just picks it up automatically. But again, kind of that Coke Pepsi scenario. Coke won't be able to get events for Pepsi sessions, and Pepsi won't be able to get events for Coke sessions. We allow you to define it that way within the server now in terms of notifications. So hopefully this helps those customers separate those alerts a little bit better based off the given users. All right, the next one. This is a CSM I-98, and it's, how do I explain this one? So CSM allows you to start sessions in either Metro Mirror mode or global copy mode. So Metro Mirror mode is a totally synchronous solution. Writes to the primary, gets to the secondary before the application is told that the write completes. Global copy is the opposite. It's asynchronous, but it's not consistent. So you write to the primary, application knows it's complete, and then it writes to the secondary. When you start a CSM session in a Metro Mirror mode previously, we established those pairs in Metro Mirror on the hardware. If there was, and this is either on initial synchronization or resynchronization, if there is a lot of out of sync tracks for a given pair, it may take a while for it to finally copy over all that data to the secondary, right? Well, customers found that if they start all the pairs, say you have hundreds of pairs, maybe thousands of pairs, you start all those pairs in Metro Mirror mode, well, obviously some are going to hit duplex state first, right? The GS8000 has internal algorithms to try to, speed up the replication, get things synchronized quickly, but some of those will hit Metro Mirror duplex state before others. And what happens then is those, if you have IO coming into those particular duplex prepared volumes, they're going to take precedence over the IO of the synchronization of global copy, right? You don't want to impact applications, so the GS8000 will ensure that those writes occur above and before the global copy. So this kind of, while it doesn't affect your overall consistency or application impact, it could affect your synchronization times. And so customers started saying, well, what do? We want you to start in global copy mode and then move to Metro Mirror. And they could do that. They could do that today by creating a scheduled task, but they kind of wanted it to be done internally because this is kind of I guess a best practice in a sense, so that you can synchronize as fast as you can. So with all that said, in the 6.3.5 release, CSM has changed it so that internally, no change necessary for the customer. You can leave all your scheduled tasks or your policies, etc., to issue a start H1, H2 for Metro Mirror mode. But internally, CSM for any of those Metro Mirror establishers will now start the pairs on the hardware in global copy mode first. And then for that role pair, we will monitor that role pair and not move anything to Metro Mirror mode until by default they all reach a 99% overall synchronization state. So once we're 99% synchronized across the role pair, then and only then will we establish things in Metro Mirror to get everything into the duplex prepared state. So hopefully you'll see, while you don't have to make any changes in your procedures, hopefully you will see some improvements in how we handle the synchronization times in cases where there's a lot of out of sync tracks that you got to synchronize. So hopefully this will be a positive thing. Again, you shouldn't see any external impact, but overall you'll see some performance improvements in synchronization. All right, the last one I want to talk about is actually a neat migration solution we came up with. So if you recall, we've been doing a lot of improvements for migrations, going from one storage systems to a newer storage system. You're doing a refresh or whatnot. In the past, we delivered a feature that allows you to easily migrate the secondary volumes on a remote copy relationship. Well, now we have a feature that will allow you to move mainframe, so CKD based primary volumes. And what we did is we worked with the ZOS iOS team to create a HyperSwap based migration solution. So how does this work? So as you know, with HyperSwap, we can swap the UCBs between two volumes so that the applications don't have to be shut down, and you should see little to no application impact, right? So you go and do a swap, and you'll swap right to the new storage system. Now, you could use HyperSwap today to do this, but a lot of customers don't. And one of those reasons is because once you set up HyperSwap, you are subject to, with today's HyperSwap session, you are subject to even HyperSwap events. So a HyperSwap event might trigger a HyperSwap before you're even ready, And in most cases with migration, you don't want to actually swap to the new storage system until you're sure you're ready. And so what we did is created a new type of HyperSwap configuration that is strictly for migration. And what this means is it will not react to HyperSwap events at all. It will only swap when you say by command you want to swap. Another change is that you can set it up while still in global copy mode. So you'll take it's all built into the CSM migration session. So that's the same session you're doing that secondary migrations on. But if you can set it up for the primary side as well now. And while you start in global copy mode, and then it'll load the configuration while you're sitting there in global copy mode. And only when you're ready would you then initiate that sync and swap type process in order to synchronize things and then swap over to the new storage system. A couple things to note before I go over some of the details on how to use it. This solution will work whether your existing relationships are CSM managed, GDPS managed, DSC line managed, etc. In addition, it's built into the migration session, which is available on all DS8000 HMCs. So CSM is preloaded on CSM on all DS8000 HMCs, and even without enabling a full CSM license, you don't have to buy CSM. In other words, you have access to the migration session. You have access to CSM, and you have access to the migration session. So you could do this without even purchasing a CSM license. This is to help out all DS8000 customers, whether they're managed by CSM, GDPS, or DSCI, or some other product. And so hopefully you can take advantage of it. You will need the ZOS iOS APAR OA62931. And you'll need, once you'll apply that, solution will be available. All right, let's get into some details. So how do we kind of set it up? This is the steps for setting up migration for volumes that are not shared. So there's kind of two scenarios. One is your typical, hopefully most cases, where all your volumes are only attached to a single sysplex. That way, when you can set the session up and swap all those volumes in that sysplex all at once together. The other case is, in some cases, customers share particular volumes across sysplexes. That case becomes a little more difficult. However, this solution does cover it, which I'll cover on the next slide. But in this case that we're talking about, this is simply all volumes are only attached to a single sysplex or monoplex, and you can set that up. So you'll create the migration session. Your H1 volumes in the migration session will be existing source volumes. Your H2 volumes will be the new source volumes you want on the new storage system that you want to migrate to. You'll issue that start global copy command, gets the global copy going. And then in the properties, so the properties of the session, you would do two things. One, you would select the system or sysplex that the volumes are attached to. And then two, you would check the box that says manage H1, H2 migration with HyperSwap. When you do those two things and save the properties, CSM will take the pairs in that migration session and load them into a HyperSwap migration configuration on that ZOS system. And at that point, the iOS code knows about those volumes and is sitting and waiting for the next set of commands that will initiate that swap process. You can confirm after that, you hit that, it'll say HyperSwap equals yes, make sure that things are there and are loaded. Now, step 5 there, it's all up to you. You can issue this command at any point in time. However, we highly recommend you wait till it's 99% or greater progress has been reached. And that's because this process, once you do the next command, does have to drive the pairs to Metromirror. So it is going to establish the Metromirror, and the longer you're running it, and the longer you're not running in Metromirror, the better in this particular migration case. So you waiting to 99% will make the process a lot faster. So when you're 99% and you are ready to swap, so now everything's set up, you want to move to the next storage system, you would issue the swap and sync command. The sync and swap command. So what the sync and swap command does is it will tell iOS, establish the pairs of Metromirror, and then swap once they reach prepared state. So it handles internally it's very fast. It knows it can query internally, so it can see the pairs, drives the Metromirror, and then once all are prepared, does the same kind of HyperSwap process as you would with a traditional HyperSwap session, and moves all your IO to that H2 volume. If you had existing relationships, whether they're managed by CSM, GDPS, etc., after the swap is complete, CSM will then create a new migration session where the sources of that migration session are your new source volumes on the new box, and the targets are the old targets. So because you basically created a multi-target solution, we can use the DS8000 multi-target relationships and establish that new source to old target relationship on the hardware without needing a full copy or anything. It's very quick. It creates the session, does that start, and you're off and running. So hopefully you'll see that setup it starts in global copy mode, but because it sets it up and does that establish for you, that's a step you don't have to do. You then can take those relationships, import them into your existing Metromirror, global mirror solution, etc., and you're off and running. So now you're on that new box. You're back into the replication you were doing before. All right. So how does it work if you are sharing volumes across storage systems? Across sysplexes? Well, it's basically the same, but a little bit different. So first thing I want to note is it does require hardware reserve support. So that's a RPQ request you'll need to make on the DS8000. You'll set that up and have them enable it, and you'll be ready to go there. Next, you'll create a migration session for each of the sysplexes where you have shared volumes across, so that you're sure there's a session in CSM that will load a HyperSwap configuration for all of those shared volumes. You want to make sure everything's configured. We can't tell that in CSM, so it's kind of up to you to make sure that's all set up correctly. Now, I will note that we can detect that there are volumes shared now. So if you set up a session, it has a shared volume, and you haven't set up that other session, we will, in CSM, be told by iOS that one or more volumes is shared. We'll put that as an alert to you, and we will not let you do the actual sync and swap process until you create another session, and we know that all sessions are, in fact, all sessions. There is a session for each of the shared volumes. Hopefully that made sense. It's kind of hard to explain. You'll start all those sessions. You'll load the configuration on those sessions, and once that's all set up, and only once that's all set up and all sessions are HyperSwap managed, will we present to you a sync command. So what's the difference? Before we had a sync and swap command, so that told iOS to do both steps. In this case, because iOS is only on each individual sysplex, they don't talk across sysplexes, we have to do in steps. So the first step is that sync command. So the sync command is done across all your sessions, which just drives everything to Metro Mirror. So all your pairs will go into Metro Mirror mode. And then the second step is to issue the swap command against those sessions. So now with hardware reserve support, when you issue the swap to that first session, it should trigger a swap in all the other sessions, but we say issue it across all sessions just to be safe. You want to make sure everything's swapped. So swap everything if it's not, otherwise make sure it's swapped. And then all sessions should be swapped, and all those sessions should create any new global migration, new source to old target sessions as well. So that part's all the same, but it is a multi-session kind of process here in terms of the actual migration sessions. All right, and last, just a little cleanup. So after you, as part of a HyperSwap process, the HyperSwap code will do a soft fence on the source volumes. What the soft fence does is prevents the customers from accidentally IPLing off those old sources, so that they know that they're if they IPL'd and the IO starts going to the old source, they might not know it, but with that soft fence, they can't, and they'll be stopped and be able to fix their IO config. So, but if after you've done a successful migration, now you're running on the new volumes, but you may need to clean up the old relationships. If it's soft fenced, you can't really do that. So there is a new command called unfence and clip. So you can issue this unfence and clip command. It's going to remove the soft fence, but it's going to do an extra step as well, which is clipping the Vulsare. So clip the Vulsare in those original source volumes, so that, again, you can't accidentally connect or IPL off those volumes. Can't use those volumes, but you are able to now do all your terminates or whatever of the old sessions. There is, if you do decide that you want to unclip it, after you unfence and clip, there is a way to unclip it, an unclip command, but this is hopefully there to make your lives a little easier. All right, so with that said, I want to do a quick demo here. Here's a session I've already got set up. So here's my original global mirror session. If I click on here and show you the copy sets, you can see that I'm going from this, my source volume, our production volumes is these 0000 volumes. And I'm copying initially to 0200. So these are my initial target volumes. So what I did was I set up a migration session type. That's the migration session. And I use that same source volume, but I'm going to this new 0100. Now, imagine it's a different box, etc., but yeah, the idea is the same. So I want to move my production to the 0100. So the next thing I do, once it's all started in global copy mode, I go into my properties. Under the H1, H2 options, here you'll see First, you'll see a system or sysplex. You'll choose the sysplex that those H1 volumes are attached to. Then you'll check the manage H1, H2 with HyperSwap. So if I go my Z console here, you see there's no HyperSwap enabled. It's all disabled. There's nothing loaded yet. I'll click on this, and now you'll see he's loading a migration configuration load, and migration's enabled. So that quick, and HyperSwap yes, the session's ready to actually HyperSwap. And again, at this point, HyperSwap's loaded, session's in global copy mode, my global mirror is still running, and I can do but HyperSwap will not react to any event HyperSwaps. So if you had an actual HyperSwap type event going on right now, it would not swap. You don't need to do that, anything of that. It's a migration case only. I will say, I don't think I mentioned before, this does require multi-target. So if your source is in a multi-target relationship already, you wouldn't be able to set up this migration session off of it. You would have to remove that other multi-target relationship. So it doesn't quite work for that directly, but hopefully the majority of the cases it does help. All right, so now I want to swap. Pretty simple. You'll see, like I mentioned, a sync and swap command. And I am, like I said, 100% progress here. I just use sync and swap. I say yes. And you'll see here in a second, the ZOS console does that swap. There we go. There's the swap occurred, HyperSwap fence, HyperSwap soft fence complete, blah, blah, blah. Swap UCBs, and the migration swap completed. In addition, so you'll see that we're starting to process here on the CSM side. You'll see that we automatically created a migrate to MIG2 GM. Migrate to is what we attach to the front of it, followed by the session name of the original session if you have it. And so that's what we created for you. And you'll see the severe now, but we're still processing it. So when it's all done, this session will be target available, and then you'll see that this migrate to session will go into a preparing state. So let's give it a second. And there we go. So now you see preparing. The migration session is target available, and you're off and running. Now on the original migration session, here's that unfence and clip command. I'll issue that. And the hardware should allow you to do your terminates now. Now I didn't do in this demo, but one good practice is before you actually do the swap, it's probably best to suspend your existing relationship first. That way you are ensured there's a consistent secondary. So in GM case, you can do a GM pause, make sure there's consistency at your secondary volumes. That way, if there's any issues in the migration, you know that secondary still has a consistent copy over there. Again, I didn't do it here, sake of expediency, but I would suggest you do that in your actual environment. So there you go. Hopefully you can see that you created that new session. You can now take these volumes. I'll show you them real quick. There's that 0100, that's the new volumes, and that 0200, that's the original target volumes. There are relationships doing global copy. If I import those into a Metro Mirror sessions, I can then start Metro Mirror mode, get them going back in Metro Mirror. In this case, if it was Global Mirror, I can import them into a Global Mirror session and start Global Mirror to get consistency groups forming on them there. But we've done that initial established for you off of those multi-target relationships to make it a lot easier. All right, so before I end it, I'll say this pitch again, our storage systems ideas portal. Please open up any requests you have for CSM on that portal. We keep constant track over them and look at votes. So look what's out there, vote for things that you want, and we try to prioritize what based off those votes and the resources we have. So as you hopefully see, most of our releases, most of the features in the releases are from RFEs. We're listening to you, so keep those requests coming. Last, more links for CSMs, portal, latest downloads, etc., and the YouTube channel where this will be posted. And with that, I'll say thank you. Hope you enjoy our 635 release and the enhancements that we keep coming out with, as well as 634 release for those who haven't yet seen the 634 release. And thank you very much. Bye-bye.